Hello everyone, I'm here with Dean Wallace from Compassion Australia, and he's going to be talking to us this weekend on Sunday. But great to have you join with us here at Living Grace. One of the interesting things is on Sunday I actually just asked for a show of hands who's actually heard of it and who's sponsoring a child, and there were a lot of hands going up. So if you've actually been here before and shared the message, it's great to have you back, because my first time to meet you, part of Compassion Australia. But I've actually been sponsoring a child for a long time now, so it's great to actually rekindle that, because talked to Penny about our child, and it's coming up to 21 years, and so it's time, tag team, we need a new one, and so it's great to actually have you come and join with us. But Dean, what is it about Compassion Australia that got you involved in it? Because you were in ministry, you were a local boy from Toowoomba, being involved in ministry here in the churches, and then one day, knock knock, come on board with Compassion. Tell us that story.
One day it all changed. G'day everyone, it's so good to be with you, and I'm really looking forward to being with you all on Sunday. I just want to thank Dirk and Edgar so much for the opportunity to be able to share about compassion. And yeah, like you were saying, one day everything changed. Well, I guess it was probably a bit of a story leading up to that, really, as most stories. I was actually in ministry for 17 years, and for about 15 of those 17 years I was a missions pastor. And I was with Pastor Chris and Sue Mulher at New Hope Church here in Toowoomba, and was loving life, was loving being with a part of the team at New Hope, and we were involved in a lot of great stuff. But there was something that was nagging inside of me. For probably about 2 years, I knew that there was a change coming. I didn't know what it was. And then in 2016, as a church, we started a partnership with Compassion Ministries.
Okay.
That was the first I'd ever really heard of them or knew anything about them. Was Pastor Chris and Sue asked us to start a partnership, and so being the missions pastor, said set it all up for us. So I did that, and that's where I first learned about compassion. And so I started sponsoring my first child in 2016, a little girl in the Philippines named Princess. And in 2017, I actually got the opportunity to go and meet her in Cebu in the Philippines. And that's where the story changed. That's where I got to sit in her home. I got to meet her family. I got to see the work that Compassion was doing in the field. And I was just blown away by that. And when I came back to Australia, fast forward 6 months from that trip, there was a job advertised on Facebook. Gotta love Facebook. With Compassion Ministries. And I said to my wife, I said, this is it. This is what I've been looking for the last 2 years. This is my next season. I'm going to work for Compassion. And so I got the job and started in July 2018. And here I am 2 years later.
Awesome. You know, the funny thing is that you were saying when you met Princess, that's when it really kind of hit home. Do you know why? What I love about Compassion is that it's not just look, you know, there is a need out there, you know, and I know that Compassion Australia and around the world, you know, it's something like 2 million plus kids are involved in being sponsored and everything else. And so often it's like, just sponsor a child, right? But actually you get involved with the child. There's a relationship being built. I love that it's not just about, okay, there's a child in that area, but from a congregation point of view, you also connect with congregations. In other words, it's a Christian ministry, not just an isolated ministry, but a whole of the context ministry for that child. Yeah. And so even though you're actually sponsoring that child, it has a flow-on effect and a blessing on a bigger scale. Yeah. I know that one of the things that you and I were talking about just in the lead up, having a lovely cup of coffee, and man, so many stories. I'm going to be excited to hear a lot more from you. But the poverty that a lot of people are in, and the children are in, and what happens to the whole family because of poverty, and Compassion Australia is there right at the coalface of their biggest need is, how am I going to not just feed myself and the healthcare, the education, but it actually journeys with a child. So it's not just here's some money. You have a relationship that journeys with them all the way through. As I said, for us it's 21 years. So tell me more about why is it that actually that is so needed?
Yeah.
Why is that journey and that relationship so pivotal to make a difference?
Yeah. Look, I think when a lot of people think child sponsorship, they're thinking the financial transaction. And look, a financial transaction is good, but a relationship is better. And that's what compassion is all about. A relationship more powerful than poverty.
Yeah.
A hope more powerful than poverty. Jesus more powerful than poverty. The church more powerful than poverty. Because poverty says a lot of things to these kids. It says you've got no value, you've got no worth, you're hopeless, you're stuck in this cycle. What's the point of even trying? And so when these kids, you've got to imagine, just imagine you're a child living on a rubbish dump, surrounded by that kind of culture of you are worthless, you have no value. And then all of a sudden, your local pastor in your community says to you, comes to your home and says to you, you've just been sponsored. Someone has chosen you. Imagine how special that would feel for you as that child. And then you start getting letters from this sponsor. Someone that's chosen you from the other side of the world starts writing to you and says to you, I love you. You've got value in my eyes. You are important to God and you are important to me. And that just triggers something in their heart, in their thinking, their view on the world, that maybe I am valuable.
Yeah.
Maybe I do have a purpose in this world. Yeah. And so the relationship is so important to just quieten those voices in people's minds and start for the voice of God to rise in their heart through the local church and also through their sponsor. So the relationship is so important to breaking that cycle of poverty.
The cycle of poverty, that's an interesting one, because we're not just talking about the child, we're talking about the whole family that's actually involved in it, and for generations sometimes. It's been, like you said, that's all that they know. And then you have the words that Jesus says, as you've done it for the least of these, you've done it for me. In other words, God is actually getting us out there to consider even the least of these. But you're actually doing something that has an eternal, a God-noticed quality about it. You've done it for me. And you break something in that cycle. You're putting God into the equation through what we've been blessed, and blessing someone in a faraway place. We can do it here locally, but the thing is that the need is just so much bigger than what's just happening local. And I want to come back to that, because I think that's actually a part of your story too, is that Dean's actually born and bred, Toowoomba, been here all the way through, and then God sets him up on the world stage. And that whole thing about, from that one moment, everything changed. I mean, that is a big change when you're doing ministry. You've always been here, grown up, Toowoomba, every street, it's like, the people around you. And then God sort of says, okay, I'm going to send you to faraway places. What was that like for you to actually see the church and people, all over the world? What's the church like all over the world?
Yeah, it's true. I'm a T-bar boy, born and bred, and I love it. I love Toowoomba. But I've also discovered that there's a whole big world outside of Toowoomba as well. I guess missions has always been on my heart. I became a born-again believer at 23 years old, and one of the first things that God put in my heart was a sense of mission. And I think that was because I was always a really adventurous kind of guy. I always wanted to, push the boundaries on things and sort of take things to the limit. And I remember when I got saved, I said to God, my life has been an adventure to this point, and I don't want that to stop. And I just really felt God put in my heart, him saying to me, I don't want the adventure to stop either. I just want to put my plans and my purpose behind it. And so missions has always been this adventure I've felt that I've been on with God. But what changed for me when I started with compassion was I felt like I'd spent 17 years building a local church. which I loved and I was happy to do, and I felt called to do, building a local church. But when I started with Compassion, I felt like I made this transition from building a local church to building the local church. Moving from focusing on just seeing our local church do well to the church universal across the world. And with Compassion, see, we partner with over 8,000 local churches in the field country.
Churches. In how many?
In 25 nations.
25 nations.
Yeah. And that's not including the local churches in Australia that we partner with. That's just field country churches that are seeing children sponsored and a beacon of light in their community. So to be able to go and visit that and see that happening, it's so encouraging.
Yeah.
You know, the book of Acts has always captured my heart.
Yeah.
Right from an early believer. Just seeing Paul, you know, on all these missionary journeys and visiting these places, and I feel like that. It's a bit funny, a bit strange, but that's how my mind thinks. But I actually feel like that every time I'm on a missions trip, every time I'm visiting the field. I feel like I'm living out my own book of Acts.
Wonderful.
You know, Dean visiting the brothers in the city of Cebu, Philippines, and encouraging them there and receiving and giving them gifts and things like that. I just feel like I'm living out the book of Acts.
Do you know, Dean, one of the interesting things is that there are parts in Scripture that actually do come alive when you put yourself into that kind of setting, where it says that, you know, God is going to be sending us as living letters. You know, it just reminds me of when you're going there. It's like, you know, yes, you are that living letter, you know, being sent to a place to encourage them. And I think that that actually is an amazing message for today. Is that, I love the thought that you had, is that mission is an adventure with God.
Yeah, it is.
And that, you know, when we sort of think about, you know, where is God in all of this? And it's like, you know, we always have this idea when we're sort of like, you know, oh, woe is me, where is God kind of stuff. It's like I'm sitting on the chair and waiting for God to come to me. But God is actually, you know, He sent us. You know, in John 20, as the Father sent me, now I send you. And we can be sent in so many different ways.
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
can be on an adventure where you actually go there. Or you can be an adventure where through the means that God has given you, you can make a difference in other places and circumstances. Be a change agent, that mission adventure. I love that.
Yeah, it's true. Go into all the world and make disciples.
Yeah.
Whether that's across the street or across the seas, it doesn't matter. We're going into world, to all different people groups. And it's all adventure if we choose to view it that way.
Wow.
Yeah.
So be encouraged today. Make today an adventure, and maybe like Dean, it's like, you know, well, today was that moment where things change. I've got myself out of, you know, thinking, you know, God's got to come to me. Maybe God is actually stirring me up to go and do something for someone else and be on that adventure to discover God. So be blessed with that today. But tune in next time, because on the Saturday one, we're going to hear a little bit more on our normal morning chat with Dean. But on Sunday, you're going to come and share with us.
Yes.
And so tune in. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment.
That'll be
See
great.
you, everyone.
See you.